Hi, my name is Dr. Samuel Kalu and I've come to the Flygerians restaurant in Peckham to speak to the owners about sickle cell disease and the role that technology can play. Three, two, one. Okay, so good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Well, I'm good, thanks. Yourselves?
Not too bad, thank you.
I'm alright.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm Jess.
I'm Joe.
And together we're the Flygerians. Find us at Peckham Palms.
Okay.
We're two sisters bringing the sweet taste of Nigeria
To the streets of London.
To London, baby.
The world of a nation.
Exactly. We want to give you that Nigerian experience without ever having to get on a plane. So no matter your race, gender or sexual creed, you're always welcome here. Our food's all about abundance and chopping life.
Yeah, chop life before life chops you.
That's our slogan. That's our slogan.
So we've been going for about 6 years. We're based at the Peckham Palms building and we've also got a second location at the Queen of the South.
Queen of the South, baby, and that's in Tulse Hill.
Okay.
So we're two sisters looking to dominate the food market and make sure Nigerian food is in every household.
Oh, right,
and on the tip of everybody's tongues.
You guys will make it. I feel it. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So I'll introduce myself. My name is Dr. Samuel Kalu.
Hi, Doctor. Hey.
Hi.
Every mum's dream.
He made it. Someone did the assignment. He did it well.
So I qualified in 2020.
Well done.
And myself and a few colleagues basically wanted to kind of like address like sickle cell disease because it's something that mainly affects African Caribbean people, and that's why we think this is a really good setting for us to talk about it basically. So first of all, do you know what sickle cell disease is, or like, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so sickle cell is an hereditary disease that affects your hemoglobin. So it causes a shortage of oxygen carried by your blood throughout your body. And it's something very serious, very severe, and it affects a lot of, as you mentioned, African Caribbean people.
Definitely, and it weakens your immune system, so that means that you find it quite difficult to fight off viruses and that disease.
Yeah, and you're in pain quite a lot. You can be swollen, you also can get sort of like yellowing of the skin. So it's something that is very serious and should be taken a lot more seriously than it is.
Yeah, basically it attacks your defense system, innit? And it doesn't give you the right antibodies to fight off diseases, I think.
And to chop life. I mean, you need your antibodies to chop life. So it's a very, very serious disease. That's something that needs to be tackled, and it's great that you're shining a light on it.
So to add on to what you've been saying, it's a disease that mainly affects our red blood cells.
Yes.
And our red blood cells, the main job is to carry oxygen in our body to like our vital organs. Okay. And with people with sickle cell disease, it affects the hemoglobin gene.
Told you.
Yeah.
Science.
She passed her science exam.
Okay.
Science.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. All right.
I did applied.
Yeah. So basically, so in people with sickle cell disease, they have like a defective hemoglobin basically, which is not efficient at transporting oxygen around the body, and therefore they have something called anemia, where they can feel like more short of breath because they don't have enough oxygen around. And you need oxygen for your organs to work. So if you're not transporting oxygen to your heart, it can cause a bit like heart attacks.
Oh, wow.
I don't have
Of course.
Definitely. Also, to your brain, it can make you more prone to strokes.
Exactly. Yeah, I was about to say, if you don't have oxygen being transported to your brain, then it can cause strokes. If you're not having oxygen transported to your bones, it can cause them to be more brittle and fracture. Okay. So I'm going to ask you like another specific question basically. So this one, there are no wrong answers, all right? There are no wrong answers.
Are you sure? Don't disgrace us. Yes.
So basically, all right. So first of all, so prepare yourselves. This is going to be.
I'm prepared. Let me take a sip.
So, do you know what gene therapy is and how it might be used to manage sickle cell disease?
Oh, I don't, but I'm gonna guess.
I think that gene therapy is like similar to like dialysis, like you use it to change the blood.
Yeah.
So you use the blood or maybe bone marrow to
or
help
manipulation of cells that already exist in your body. So I think we're onto something.
Yeah, but I feel
you guys are touching the right places.
I hope so. I work in the NHS.
10
years.
So yeah, you mentioned So first of all, it's okay if you don't know the entirety of it because gene therapy was only like I guess we've given the green flag to go ahead only in November this year.
This November, that's
This November
insane.
for sickle cell disease.
And how many people does sickle cell affect within the African and Caribbean community? It's a question I want
Well,
to
so I mean, like 3/4, like so. For example, like the continent of Africa, so 3/4 of the world's sickle cell diseases happen in Africa, basically.
It's insane. I mean, it's definitely something very dear and close to our hearts.
Yeah.
Because our cousin has sickle cell and our family has sickle cell traits. So it's definitely something that lives with us and that we understand to a degree. But I don't think there's enough
Gene therapy
education.
has only been authorised
As of November.
Yeah,
Wow.
But I mean, if you don't mind me saying, is it right if you just like talk a bit about like your personal experiences of what you've seen about sickle cell?
Yeah, well, we've got a cousin. Do you say his name? I don't know.
No, you don't have to say.
We've got family
Okay.
members. Well,
We have family
sickle
members.
cell is actually in our family. Yeah, some of
Yeah.
us carry the trait, some of us actually carry the full genes, and we've got
Yeah.
family members. And we've actually lost friends and family friends that of sickle cell.
Yeah.
And I think like it's a sort of taboo. Like my sort of knowledge of sickle cell when I was younger was that you wouldn't make it past the 21. It was like the 21 club.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it's
So
like
we're seeing a lot of people living and
living a bit
existing
longer.
with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people living with it, and obviously going in for regular checks. With our cousin, we found that he was always very tired. We went to go visit him in Nigeria. He's very anemic, so we often send medication for him, and obviously get his prescriptions and things like that. And we also found that he had like a sense of, you can see that a slight discoloration when he wasn't taking his medication.
Tiredness,
It was the fatigue more so, I think, that affected. You can see when he was running, playing football, physical exercise was very exhausting for him. So for us, it is quite a sad thing to see. And I wish there was more knowledge on it. So it's great that you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, we try our best. I mentioned a few things about you spoke on. If you don't know the answer, that's fine. You mentioned about like sending medications.
Yeah.
Do you know what medications were being sent?
Folic acid?
So normally when we go over there, like when they normally just take our medications, but it's normally like iron tablets.
It's usually iron tablets that we take.
So it's
And
like
my mum's quite good at sending folic acid.
so we get like forcible, lots of multivitamins that they use actually. We also, but sometimes more of the cases like he's just providing the money. The money that will translate for them to buy the medication then. But when we do go to Nigeria, we make sure we back up with the painkillers, the iron tablets, all the A to Z that medication, the follicle, like folic acid.
Folic acid that we bring with
And
us.
forcible, like which is that carries all the vitamins, A's to the C's to D's.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you mentioned about pain medication.
Yeah.
Like pain. So like in sickle cell disease, you have something called almost like a pain crisis sometimes when the red blood cells become like, so basically it forms like sickles. Sickle cells, it's almost like a curve, like banana
Yeah,
shape.
because it changes shape, doesn't it?
Exactly,
It does
exactly.
shape.
And when it changes shape, like the red blood cells clump within the blood vessels, and it can like basically block your oxygen transportation to the body, and that causes a pain crisis. So we usually treat pain crisis with like the strongest forms of like pain medication, like morphines or codeine. Yeah, exactly.
When we go to Nigeria, we always pack the painkillers.
The whole
But now
suitcase.
February,
Really?
unless I explain this, because it's easier and it's cheaper and accessible for us to get codeine, to get the codamol, naproxen, all those over-the-counter things over there. But the markup, I guess, in Nigeria and the prices to actually afford that is actually totally different. So
Very
we
true.
always just pack the painkillers.
Bring a suitcase.
Bring a suitcase.
All right, okay, that's very good.
We haven't been arrested yet for
Drugs
for drug trafficking. Yeah.
You have to say allegedly we did those things, so you know. But anyway, but so so going back to what you guys mentioned, I asked you a few questions back in regards to like gene therapy. You guys correctly mentioned about bone marrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, Joe.
So like so to go back with bone marrow, our red blood cells are produced in our bone marrow. Okay. Now for people, and more specifically, we have stem cells in our bone marrow that produce red blood cells. Okay. People with sickle cell disease have like a defect in those stem cells, and therefore they produce defective hemoglobin in red blood cells. Okay. Now in gene therapy, which has been recently authorized, they take the red blood, or they take the stem cells out of the patient, okay, the sickle cell patient, from the bone marrow.
Okay.
Which can be extremely painful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But is it a procedure that's it's obviously done whilst you're asleep?
You do wash your weight, yeah.
So during that procedure, they give like almost like a local anesthetic, basically, to reduce the pain.
Okay.
So they remove bone marrow from the patient, and in the lab they use like basically almost like molecular scissors to kind of like change the alter the defective gene within the stem cell,
Okay.
and then they return it back into the patient's bone marrow. Okay, and now the theory is that they'll be producing healthy red blood cells.
Okay.
Okay, and that is like a permanent treatment. For
Permanent.
them.
It's not. Is it a one-time treatment?
It's a one-time treatment.
And so does that act as a cure?
It acts as a
It
cure.
does.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
Prior to this procedure, the only kind of long-term treatment for sickle cell disease was bone marrow transplantation. Okay. But the only problem with bone marrow transplantation is that only a few people, or a select few, exactly,
Yeah.
a select few people.
My friend Brooks as well.
Go ahead. So what you about to
So one
say?
of our friends was affected by this, and she had to have a bone marrow. She had, I think she got it from her brother. Yeah, it was her brother that was but she rejected it, I think, so she had to get it from another brother.
Okay.
And then it was a match, and she was okay.
Okay, exactly. So you've just touched on it. So prior to this kind of like new breakthrough in medicine, the only way people with sickle cell disease could be treated for it was bone marrow transplantation. But as you mentioned, it has limitations because only a certain people would be eligible for the bone marrow transplantation because of rejection, okay? Like immune rejection, okay? So that's one thing. Another thing is that with this new form of therapy, it's obviously in the early stages, all right? So it's in like early stages of clinical trials. And also it potentially can cost quite a few £1 million actually.
You can't put a price on a life though. You can't.
That is exactly right.
Spend the money.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
Exactly. So with the few things I've mentioned, can you think about like any arguments for or against gene therapy?
Definitely for. There should be no arguments against, because realistically, every life is precious and every life is valuable.
Exactly.
And especially within our community, I think we need to fight harder for ourselves and make sure that we put a stance and make sure we take people take us seriously. Because things like this are affecting so many people, as you mentioned, and a lot of people maybe are not aware of this because it's not taught in schools. So I think better education and a better movement to the government to make sure that this is a procedure that is accessible for all.
From the minute you're right to be born, you have the right to have an adequate life that deserves that to be treated and like be looked after and respected. All life is valuable. You can't put a price on this. Like what objection is that?
Yeah, there should be no objections.
Like,
Give
everyone should have like we strive for equality and equal systems in there. Everyone should have a good quality of life in it. The whole point of science and this medical research, what's the point of doing it if you can't actually put this into place to make life better, isn't it? You can't put money on something like that.
I do know within the black community there's one thing that would affect people, it's the church. People, in terms of science, there can be that backward mentality of surgical procedures, oh look, God will handle it. But at the same time, God has given us the means to develop such procedures like this to better and further life. So let's use them, put it into practice.
I feel like we should stop fearing the knowledge of science and put that into practice, isn't it? Like you said, God give people the power, the knowledge to actually use these skills, isn't it? So I think the one step back that could be, is people with the fear of operations, going under the needle. But do you know what? I think we've got a new generation that are upcoming in it, and we're more like understanding the religious belief and faith and putting that into practice and making sense. Making the research make sense with the way we live our lives.
Because religion and science can go hand in hand. There's no way that it should be separate. You can still have faith in God and still still undergo great procedures that will change your life. So every single person should be queuing up to do this if it affects them.
I think all that needs to be done is just well-informed people, understand what things are step by step, understand what is entailed in
the procedure and the process and the healing. I think once people understand and have a better understanding of the overall process, they'll be more inclined to get it done, and there'll be no objections, and there shouldn't be.
Wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. I can really feel the passion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You did that silence. Someone ready to be a doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.